The fashion industry follows a take, make, waste formula. Take from the earth, make a product, and waste it.
You can build things in a great way with a good cause and a good intention, but at the end of the day, if they just end up in a landfill, then there's a problem.
He's right. So how do we change the fashion industry?
We have to think differently, and the circular economy is the solution.
The circular what?
In a circular economy, from the start, you think about how can those materials not generate waste, but also you develop new business models so those products can be used for much longer.
Long story short, let's make stuff that never becomes waste and can be used again and again and again and again. Hence, the circle.
I think it's like super cool. I treat it like my baby.
For me, it's the most sexy product we have. It's a cool product.
Jeans are universal, making them the perfect guinea pig for a circular project.
So the jeans redesign started with a simple question. What would it take to make a pair of jeans circular now?
Good question. Currently, making jeans requires a lot of cotton, pesticides, fertilizers, and water. They're dyed with lots of chemicals and then washed with even more chemicals and stones to look old. So, where do we start?
The denim and the thread are biodegradable.
98% of the water is completely recycled.
We use a lot of old jeans to make new jeans.
We also took away the back patch and just have printed label.
You can unscrew the buttons for the recyclers.
We have laser technology to age a garment.
Choose to print all the information inside the jeans.
We cancel all the metal rivets, traditional in a pair of jeans. We don't compromise quality, we don't compromise design, we don't compromise image because it's circular. Sexiness is still there.
Circular jeans are no experiment. They're real and they're out there. In fact, over 60 companies are creating a circular collection, launching durable jeans that will become new jeans again in the future.
Can you believe this is made out of recycled denim?
I do think we can make fashion circular. I think it's going to take a lot of effort, a lot of investment, and a lot of creativity, but it is possible.
If we can give not only the physical comfort of clothing, but also the mental comfort of knowing that you're wearing something that doesn't have the impact on the environment or the impact on people's lives. I mean, it's a better story, isn't it?
That's right. I hope the video gives you a little idea about our following panel discussion. And in the next section, we will explore how circularity works in design. As professionals have suggested, a new textiles economy. How do we make this emerging concept and put that into practice, rather than a take, make, and dispose practice in the current production system? The following panel discussion will help us rethink the whole process and the whole production system and design for circularity. With that, may I now invite the moderator of this panel discussion, David Tring, denim head from the Magic of Denim Consultancy. Let's welcome David. And we're very happy to have invited our panelists to come onto the stage. They are Maximilian Berleb, VP of Global Supply Chain of Calvin Klein Asia from PVH. Let's welcome Max. And also we have Annika Visser, brand lead of Unspun. Let's welcome Annika. And we also have Michael Kampe, who is joining us on Zoom today. He is a professor and the creative director of Michael Kampe. And the panel discussion topic is circularity in design. Let's welcome them with a big round of applause, and I'll pass the stage to David.
Okay. So, yeah, it's me again. Sorry about that piece. Just another... For the people that didn't join us earlier this morning, my name's David. Been in the denim industry most of my career. Today, my focus is really about connecting industry, so all of you in Hong Kong, with education and what we can do to bring the next generation through. I retired from Contour, from the Lee & Wrangler brands, where I was the vice president at the end of last year, really with the intention of connecting industry and education. I've been in Hong Kong since 2006. I really love being in Hong Kong, and I'm so glad we can all be back together again like this. Prior to that, I was at H&M. I was there for 11 years in the head office in Stockholm. And in fact, in 1988, I made my very first sustainability presentation in 1988, and that resulted in H&M's first sustainability collection in 1992, which means it's 30 years, and we've only come this far. So I've been quite disappointed until just a few years ago when I see some of the really big companies and the whole industry starting to change and move forward, and I'm very positive about that. Let's have a little chat, and Max, tell us a little bit about you and your career.
Hey, David. So good afternoon, everybody. My name is Max. I'm from PVH. Some of you maybe know, some not. PVH is the mother company of Calvin Klein and Tommy Hilfiger, two very iconic global brands. So a little bit to myself. I'm in the industry for more than 20 years. And I'm 15 years now in Hong Kong. I had various roles within the supply chain. The last 6 years, I'm for PVH. I'm leading and be responsible for the Asia supply chain, focusing on the Asia markets. And yeah, circularity is a big topic, is a growing topic in our organization. Thanks for the builds. Thanks, David, that I will be part of this panel today. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm so happy that you can join us with all your experience. Let's see how strong our internet connection is, and let's have a chat with Michael in Germany. Can you hear us, Michael?
I can hear you well. Hope there's the same for you.
Yes, we can hear you. Tell us a little bit about your career and who you are.
Yeah, happy to do so. First of all, thanks for the invite, and good day, Hong Kong. It's early morning here in Germany. I've been in the denim and fashion industry since more than about 10 years, and the biggest share of that 10 years I've been dealing with sustainability, because I think it's a great asset and an additional inspiration for especially upcoming designers, young designers, whether they will be in your design team or whether they are your students, because I'm a creative director for a sustainable brand based in Cologne and a professor teaching several courses in Düsseldorf at the Academy of Fashion and Design. So the possibility there gave me the chance to see both sides, right? The new generation going to work in the industry, as well as the people already working for the industry. Before, I've been working with Lee Jeans in Antwerp, where David and I also met. Before that, I was in Hugo Boss for a couple of years, where we initiated the first sustainability story for denim, which was kind of fun because maybe not most of you will connect Hugo Boss with a denim company or with denim product actually, but they're making tons of it. And before that, I was at Scotch & Soda in Amsterdam, where back then sustainability or more sustainable, more conscious way of developing product was just coming up, but it was not there yet. And I'm happy that over the last 6 to 8 years, I believe, there have been a great growth in this, but we're definitely not finally there yet, and therefore I'm happy to join you all in this today's discussion to also discuss and talk about it and inspire each other, inspire our audience on what could be the possible new takes on especially the field of circularity.
Thanks, Michael. It's really good to have you with us, and I can see our connection's really good, so we can see you and hear you wonderfully, so thank you for that. One of the things I love about this panel is we've got really deep expertise right across the industry, because now I want to introduce you to Annika, who works with Unspun, Denim Unspun, startup, innovation company, coming at things from a very different angle. So Annika, tell us a bit about you.
Hello, my name is Annika, and I'm the brand lead for Unspun. As David mentioned, we are like the babies in the industry right now. We've only been around since 2017. And what we do is basically we're trying to flip the entire fashion paradigm and the way that mass manufacturing works on its head. And the way that we produce is we produce custom fit jeans from 3D body scans. So basically, you do a 3D body scan, you get to choose the fit, the fabric, and then our algorithm will connect your body scan, the measurements from your body scan to the fit and the fabrics that you've selected. It will create the garment in 3D automatically. Those will then be translated to 2D patterns, printed out, sewn together. Obviously, we use as sustainable materials and washing methods as we can, and then we'll ship them to the customer. So it's a fully like a digital tailored experience. And yeah, of course, we're also very interested in circularity and working on some future solutions for the industry at large.
That's great. I think one of the exciting things about the way Unspun's approaching the whole industry and the supply chain is you have almost no waste because you're really producing for the person. So that's really interesting as a business model. So today's all about circularity. And we saw that fantastic video earlier from the Ellen MacArthur Foundation, who not only promote circularity and teach circularity for the denim industry, they actually do it for all industries, from the car industry all the way through to denim and what we do today. So before we get too deep into because this could get very interesting as a discussion, before we get too deep into that, I just want, maybe Michael, you can tell us a little bit about, circularity in the denim industry. It all looks nice, but is it really scalable? Can we do this in a big way, Michael?
Well, I believe at one point we need to, because there's always the difference of wanting and needing to, and as we all know, our resources are limited. We are already at a point where now we see that prices have been rising in Europe as well. Logistics have been rising, transport costs, energy costs have been rising. So there's definitely also the necessity to scale this up. I hope and I believe that this can ultimately also be scaled up to a greater scale and become the new normal, as we like to label so many things today. Next to the question whether it's scalable, I think next to also knowing that this is needed and this will be a necessity in terms of conscious product development and sustainable brand development and product development, what I believe is a great additional asset to the whole idea and the story about circularity is its storytelling, and that you can make product that already exists. And we know that denim exists for more than 100 years, and it's been there, and it's always going to stay there, and it's always going to resemble the mood and the atmosphere, especially of the youth, like we just seen in the WGSN report. And what is so great about denim, it doesn't have an age ticket, right? You can put it on a 2-year-old toddler or on an 82-year-old senior, all over the world, every day in 365 days a year. So that's beautiful. And to find for such a diverse and timeless product also a technique or a sustainable solution that is going out of the linearity into circularity is the best solution we need to find, and we need to make it able to then also let it be scaled up.
Yeah, that's very, very good. Max, PVH, so huge company. You would not be getting involved in this, I think, if it wasn't something that could become scalable at some point in the future. How are you really thinking about circularity and the opportunity for the future?
So from a PVH perspective, we definitely see this as a very strong, also from a business perspective, a very strong case also for the future. So we also see that our customers are asking more and more about sustainability, but not only that, about circularity, products, so to see the whole cycle, how this will end. So just as an example, I mean, maybe some of you have seen, we just recently have done, we call it Reimagined Denim. We have launched an upcycling collection here in Hong Kong in our Times Square store. You have seen it maybe. It was a huge success. So we got a lot of feedback from our consumers, a lot of interest. And originally, I can tell you, this was only something which we have thought we do in Hong Kong. But we will now launch it across Asia. And also our other regions in Europe and US have shown interest. So this shows us that circularity is something the consumer wants to see, he wants to understand more. We did also a lot of explanation and education around that in the store. It was well received. So make a long story short, yes, definitely something we will invest in. And maybe you have seen in the video, my colleague Nicholas was there. So there's also a lot around technology, which we are looking into, how make upcycling, circularity easier, right? How make it a little bit more, I would say, scalable. And this is something which we're investing right now.
Yeah, it's great. I think if the bigger companies like PVH, like Contour, like Levi, it's so important to take a lead. And with these big volumes, this is where we can really make a difference as well. So I think it's really great, the work that PVH is doing.
Definitely, yes.
Annika, so smaller brand, but you were telling me earlier you were about to open a store in Central, and within that space you're also going to be able to give talks and different things. Is circularity going to be part of that, and how does that affect the work at Unspun with you?
Yeah, totally. So, I mean, as a smaller brand, we believe that obviously circularity is scalable. It's a part of our ethos and also our mission. What we want to create is fully circular garments. But in terms of scalability, looking at the industry, I do think that it's important for collaborations to happen between bigger brands, smaller brands, but not only between the brands and the retailers, but also all of the stakeholders in the value chain, right? From the fabric mills all the way to local governments, etc. So yes, I think that circularity is going to be scalable in the denim industry because, you know, we're a community and we can all help each other. And in terms of our store, for sure, we want to definitely showcase some of our circular products, also educate consumers and people who come through and visit us.
Great. How do you see, Annika, the real benefits when it comes into the design phase as well? You know, there's a famous saying that 80% of all sustainability can be solved at the design stage if we make the right decisions there. So is that something that really comes into the design process for you guys?
Yes. So I guess, firstly, all circularity starts with the design, because if we're not going to design products that are going to be able to be reused at the end of their life cycle, it's not going to be circular. And also the goal is to obviously keep goods out of landfill and also see how we can be more intentional with the things that we produce, and then also how we get them back and then how we will make them into something new. So at Unspun, what we do is we basically use this dissolvable thread that would basically render the garments after use. When we get them back, they can go back into panel form, which would either then be used for a garment V2. We can stitch them with either new fabrics or old fabrics to create more patchwork, a remade denim line, or if the quality of the fabric is not good enough, we can basically shred them and robe them into new yarns and create a second generation fabric from those.
I love that. So it's not just about the fabric.
It's about the components, yeah.
The thread and the buttons and everything else has to be thought about in a circular way as we think about designing products.
Yeah.
But Michael, what's your point on this?
My point is basically that every design, every job basically would be boring if it's not challenging, right? So creatively being challenged with having to work, or the necessity to work with less, can be a great inspiration also for designers. And I believe that today, even more than over the last 20 years maybe, there will be a big demand, not just from the companies and the designers working for them and putting together the collections, to become better with less. Yeah? Make better with less, make it long-lasting, make it last longer. I like your quote, David, of the 80% starting in the design process, because I think the design process and how we plan collections, and if we even want to stick to all these like crazy schedules with every week sometimes hitting new product in the shop floor, I don't think it's sustainable, honestly. Basically it isn't, yeah? Because you're filling up the market with so many products that in the end is impossible to be sold. Yeah? So where can the change happen? The change happens in the design stage, and like I've mentioned before, it also needs to change in the mindset of the future designer generation. So that's why I observe and I see with a lot of universities and schools, for example, and I appreciate and I'm very happy to see that this is also in the curriculum of their studies. It's something that is over the last years been having a big growth and a big momentum in growing more and more, making the future generation, as well as the people working in the industry right now, more aware of that there is more to gain, more value to create with using less and with a more considerate way of creating product, any product, if you will, right? Because if we're talking really circular, you would need to challenge whether it can only be circular and sustainable and consciously produced if it's timeless, genderless, borderless, basically limitless in all the resources, starting with the initial idea, starting with your brand concept. Who needs another brand? Yeah? Why is there so many products and so many companies out there if the demand is relatively low and is even lowering? And we have been seeing a great decline with the recession, for example, coming up. In Germany, we saw a couple of weeks ago, there was an analysis and it said like, yeah, third top area where people are planning to spend less in is consumption on footwear and clothing, right? So this should be an alarm signal for all of us that there isn't that high demand. And if there is demand for new product, make it as good as possible, make it as circular and sustainable as possible, and work on a very great product that isn't limited to one season or to 2 seasons and so on, but that becomes a companion for everyone who's wearing it.
So you're really calling out some good benefits there for the industry. And I also like you're talking about the students and the education part, that we start people off in the right way now so that they're designing with the right values and understanding what the possibilities are. And I don't hear any startups today, all the new denim brands that come up, that are not having sustainability and circularity within their mix of how they're developing their products. Max, again, as a really big company and with a huge supply chain, there must be some kind of benefits starting to come through if there's a circular business and economy and you're getting some of the rivets and things back in to the business. So that's going to be interesting from a supply chain side, isn't it, in the future?
Absolutely. I mean, I think it's also holding us more and more accountable to our way of how we source the products. And design was mentioned, but it's also how we build the supply chains in future, how we collect the garments, which just was mentioned, and how we bring this within our processes in our supply chain and value chain network. So I think this is definitely something which is forcing us to think differently, think new, and something we definitely need to embrace and will embrace, and we'll need to find solutions for that. But again, this is something starts maybe from the beginning, how the products are designed, but also what kind of fabrics, what kind of trims you're using, right? If you think that the product maybe has a circularity in front of the product. So quality, I think, is a big one, because whatever product we offer, is it a new one or a circular product, there's a promise to the consumer. And this is something we need to look into and will look into and try to have a solution for that.
So, Max, does that give you, I get the idea, we can design things that are circular and in the future we'll get them back and then we'll make new things out of them. But what are the obstacles to stop us doing that today? What do we still need to overcome within not just the supply chain? I guess it goes right back to consumer. Well, what are the challenges for us to be able to enable this?
I think it's a mindset. This is education which we need to do, right? So circular products are products which also bring value, right? And this is something I think we need to bring within our I would say our whole organization, within my company, PVH, but also towards our consumer. I mentioned before we had this pop-up in our store, and it was not only because of the product, it was also a lot of education and information sharing to show and explain the benefit of circularity to the consumer. So I think it's a 360, and this is something I think we need to invest more, but there's no doubt this is the future.
Okay. Annika, same question to you, but not about PVH.
So I think that sorting facilities and like take-back schemes, because now we're already at the factory floor level, we're using the offcuts to do like recycled, pre-consumer recycled denim collections, which is kind of closing the loop there. Then at the design phase, we're also designing for circularity, but then it's in the customer's hands, right? So echoing what Max mentioned about the education, but then as a consumer now, okay, I have this jeans, I think it's circular, what do I do with it at the end of its life? Like, it's not convenient. So I think one of the major challenges is having like massive take-back schemes and just educating the consumers and knowing what they can actually do with these garments at the end of the garment's life cycle.
So end of life for a product. When we look in Hong Kong, there are 200 garments put into landfill in Hong Kong every 10 seconds. It's a scary statistic and one of the worst in the world. So finding ways to get that product back and turn it into something new just seems to make a lot of common sense to me. Michael, you've been dealing with a lot of these kind of challenges over your career. What do you think we've still got to sort out?
Well, there have been already so many great points mentioned by Annika and Max, so I can only add on to two quotes that I personally like. One is, transparency is the new luxury. How to make it understandable for the customer and the consumer, the final consumer, in the end will make the big cut or make the big difference. Is it authentic? Is it credible? Is it true? Yeah, because only through being really true you can create trust, and I believe that especially the field of sustainability is the most risky field to burn your hands on, and once you do something wrong, you really need to work again on creating and building up this trust with your customer and consumer. And the other part that I would like to add here is that I think it makes sense to also with the customers and consumers create this mindset that was already mentioned of understanding that there is more value in consuming any product that has less impact, right? Less impact in the way it's been produced, but in the end, even a bigger, more positive impact in the way that when we start already by or within the design phase to think about the last cycle and the last part of the product, it gives you a very different point of looking into your design. I believe, or at least personally speaking here, when I'm thinking about a product in such a manner and in such a way that it gives me more restrictions that in the end, as a designer, is what I need to work with, because design, in difference to art, for example, is problem solving, right? Design is always how to solve a problem. How to solve a problem of a product that you want to make it last longer, where you want to give and grant your consumers and the wearers the biggest possibility to wear it, to fall in love with your product, fall in love ultimately with your brand, to come up with a message that again needs to be authentic, credible, it needs to be true, and that brings us as designers, as professionals, as educators, as everyone actually, as human beings, if you will, also with our society, with our group of friends and family, into a position where we should make use of that in a way to education starts in our own homes, education starts in the factories we work with, education starts in the companies we work for and we work with, starts with everyday surroundings and starts with not just us giving education further, but also us staying informed, staying curious, the necessity for curiosity here in how to learn about making things better. And ultimately, it cannot be done only by one or two people. It cannot be done with only a few of the companies. Even the bigger companies that, as we mentioned before, it's great that company as big in scale such as PVH or Levi is so ambitious in these targets. And I really appreciate seeing this and hearing also about the ideas and in collaboration also with companies such as Unspun, there is a great possibility then to make it even stronger. But where I want to add is that also these big companies, they are not alone. It starts with collaboration to also then support the smaller companies and the smaller brands, and ultimately with the suppliers, for example, to collaborate with the suppliers, to share upcycled qualities, to share recycled fibers, to share developments, and like this, again, going to the point that I mentioned before, create an even stronger and more sustainable impact than finally in the end.
So there's a lot there around education. Education of young people as they're coming into the industry, education of brands and the people that work in the brands and the supply chain, and also the consumer. And I think nowhere is that more evident than in Hong Kong today, where the education level on sustainability is quite low, and we've got to do a lot of work within the community to improve our situation here. I think apart from these kind of challenges, what kind of new innovations do we need to really help us? You know, that's, in this industry, I think the history of the denim industry has been built on innovation. Actually, all the great moments were about innovation and making things better. So, Annika, you're the innovation gurus today here. What do we need to do innovatively? What's still missing?
Oh, goodness. So I'm just going to go back to what I said in the previous question, because I really see one of the major blockers for this. There's no lack of waste. But how do we deal with these waste? How do we deal with the waste that we get? How do we sort the waste? So right now we have like one facility in Tai Po, which is amazing, the Billy facility. I'm not sure if you're familiar with that. But from Novatex, yes. And basically they do garment-to-garment recycling. There's a small, a mini version in the mills. If you haven't, go and check it out. But yeah, I think more of that, like how do we scale this? Also, I know there used to be issues with separation and how do you upcycle or recycle fabrics that have different blends. And I know there are a lot of innovations happening in the material space, but yeah, I just think we need more. It needs to be faster. But yeah, there are many things happening.
Okay. Max, you must have a huge innovation budget, no?
I would love to, yes.
What are you going to spend all that money on? What do we still need to develop and innovate on?
Yeah, I think also was said before, I think in technology, especially in the design process, having technology to allow to maybe have a different way of designing products, that technology can help here. Then definitely material is something we're looking into. I think it was also mentioned in the video earlier, so biodegradable material, fiber to fiber. I think these are things which we are looking into. And just looking into the back, how much great companies are there and are all looking into new innovative ideas, especially around that. And I think, trims packaging is also something which we're looking into. It's not only the fabric, it's not only the design process, it's also really having a 360, the entire product, and also how we package it, how we label it. So this is all things which we are looking into, looking for solutions, partnering with different companies on that. This is how, we PVH approach that.
Okay, good. I think I've managed to put Unspun and PVH together there on a collaboration. Let's see how that works out. I get my 10%, right? I'm working 10% today on everything. Not really. It's 15. Michael, innovation. What's still missing?
Well, what is missing is maybe at one point also sitting back, looking at all the options that you have and fix on one, right? There are so many innovations out there already, and they're adding up to the pile every other day, every hour, if you will, which is great. However, I believe that also there needs to be at one point one thing where we really want to go forward. When I started really becoming interested in sustainability, I must say that I was quite overwhelmed with such a thick book only explaining all different kinds of certificates. And you can get lost in it, especially if you're, for example, new in the industry, and if you're as a consumer also not working in this field on every day in a professional manner. So I think it needs to have a clarity what is the one direction we want to go, and I think circularity is a good example here because it's easy to get it. Yeah? I believe recycling and then ultimately leading into circularity is also something from a final consumer point of view that is good to get, easy to understand, relatively easy to get here how one part works into the other. And then when talking about the executive side from it, I think this change, of course, needs to start with design, starts in product development, starts in the sourcing, in the finishing, starts even before that in the education of the future generation of designers, but more so, it will also have a huge impact, and already has it, in the whole product management, right? In the management of how we're planning assortments. How many, like I said before, how many drops do we need? How big does a collection really need to be? How many different fits do you need? How broad does your offer need to be to have your message set? Because I believe you can have a very, very strong message with just one product. You don't need to have a huge load of hundreds of pieces. Yeah, if you're really aiming to become clear, focused, have one solid direction, ideally linked from the get-go on circularity, I would love to sometimes press a button with a lot of companies that are out there already and push reset, yeah, rethink, reset your whole setup, reset the mindset of how we're producing goods, because ultimately wherever we can change here or there some needed amendments in the materials or in the trims, which is all necessary and needed, ultimately it gets to a point where we're still producing way more product than is actually needed by the final consumer. So that is a great challenge. That at the same time can be very inspiring, because nothing is more challenging than, for example, challenge your design team by saying, hey, instead of 300 pieces this next collection, we're just working on 18. Yeah, you will see a lot of hassle coming up. First, maybe they will be pleasantly surprised and, oh, just 18 pieces, well, that's easy. But if you're then saying like, yeah, but we still need to make this company sustain, and we still need to create a turnover that makes our brand survive, then the real challenge is going to start. And again, this can only start with a proper communication, with a communication that is also easy to get, so you don't get as overwhelmed as I, for example, became 8 years ago when I was first looking at this big book of certificates.
Wonderful. We've got time for one last question, so I'm going to take that to Max. And I was interested because you were saying, wow, you see a lot of things happening out there on sustainability with the mills and the companies that are showcasing. You've been in this business a long time. You've worked within the supply chain. What are the big changes that you've seen happening over the last 5-10 years?
Yeah, massive changes. And even the last 2 years was like being a spaceship on on warp speed, right? So this is really something which shaked us up But what is changing? I think, number one, I think consumer, but also more regulatory requirements are around transparency on the entire value chain. So there's a lot of investment on our side, but I know in all brands, to have this visibility, this transparency from a product development point of view, from a product lifecycle point of view, from a sourcing point of view. So this is one. Traceability is a big one for us, especially when we are operating in Asia, but also from a US perspective. This is a big one. Have really solutions around that. Where is the fiber coming from? Where is the cotton coming from? So there's a lot of work around that, investment around that. And then the third one is technology. I mean, technology end-to-end, bringing solutions for various parts of our value chain. So this is what we are looking into, investing into. We feel there's the future. And maybe the last one, be bold, try to make clear what we want for the future. So from a PVH perspective, we made very clear that 2025, we have 100% of our cotton sustainable. So for sure, this is something we want to do because it's good for the planet and it's good for our customers. But we also do this to move forward, to bring the organization forward. So this is something as a bigger organization where we look into.
Oh, that's great. I think if we don't go to circularity, we won't have an industry. So we need to be making these changes. And the sooner we can, the sooner we can move on with everything. That finishes the panel questions. We're going to take some questions from the audience. And I know the iPad has been very busy with questions coming through, I hope.
Let me see if there's any questions from our online audience. If our audience here have any questions, please also raise your hand. Okay, we have got one there.
Hi, David and I, we are big friends now. It's me again. Thank you very much for this great insight. I lived the past couple of years in East Africa, and Africa goes hand in hand now with discarded, it's not even reusable, it's discarded clothes from us, more or less. I met this tiny little company, and I consulted them and worked with them, and we really try our best to actually find a solution, and we are aiming for fiber to fiber. But the problem is the warehouses are overwhelming, the markets are overwhelming, and most of the garments are soiled anyway. We try to figure out how much we can actually use, like 100% cotton and of course denim, shred them, and then are used for, I don't know, a pillow or mattress in it. And this is actually a huge setup for us, a real upset for us, so that we actually try to figure out how we actually can solve it. And we try to get in contact with bigger companies who already do it, and they went to Bangladesh. One very famous company went to Bangladesh, and we were really shocked because that's not where the clothes go. Most of the clothes, they go to Africa, and we actually wanted to pitch our deal, and damn it, it went the other way. So I would like later on maybe discuss with you where we could actually find, a footing and how we actually can deal with it. Because there's also, if you have the recycling aspect, so much greenwashing that the consumer actually thinks, well, but it's 70% recycled. Yeah, it's not fiber to fiber, it's rPET. So there's a lot of what you said, education and transparency, and the DPP, I think, is one of the best things ever. And I think we should actually, support this more, especially people. Well, my background is production and quality, so also alternative fibers. There are so many alternative fibers in abundance, and we only concentrate on blends, and it's just so much to do for us, I think. So yeah, thank you.
I think you really highlight a really important point there of, we have to stop shipping clothes from one country to another after their end of use. We have to deal with our problems in the places where the problems start. And Africa is the smallest continent in terms of shipping finished goods out, and it's the biggest place for receiving all the old waste and the trash. It really is trash in a lot of cases from the other countries. So building up these recycling centers and building up our technology to be able to do fiber to fiber, I think this is absolutely critical. It's a really good point. Thank you.
We do have one question from our online audience. She said that during this panel, we talked mainly about circularity of products, but not much about business models. So what about clothes rentals, for instance? And because denim is such a classic, would it still be interesting to consider this business model? And she stated an example like Mud Jeans.
So Mud Jeans is a brand from Holland that are really interesting. They're a B corporation, as are Unspun, which is another good thing to look for, I think, when you're looking for companies. B corporations really do the right thing. And Mud Jeans not only have done one of the world's first 100% post-consumer denim recycled jean. These titles are really hard, right? We need to simplify the titles first, get the marketing team on it. But they've also set up a whole leasing program on jeans, a bit like Rent the Runway, but for denim. And this isn't new to the denim industry. I know from my history with Lee, in the archives there, if you go back to the 1930s and 40s, Lee were actually setting up leasing programs for workwear, where you would send, and I think the hotel businesses do it today, where you get the uniforms and they use them, bring them back, launder them, and send them out again. So there's a business model there on leasing and rental that I think could be really interesting in the future. The same with resale. We see brands starting to buy their product back. Levi's very good at this, and reselling the product as a refurbished product, a bit like Apple do with their iPhones. So there's a lot of interesting models there we could look at.
Great. Yeah.
No, I just, on that question, I wanted to mention that right now, I think we're in a good space in the fashion industry where this whole like vintage, secondhand, resale, it's really becoming cool. It's becoming trendy. And I do see that if you think about like how trends filter down into mass. It starts with like a top level trend, cool brands, Kalina Strada, Ekaus Lata, etc. that are already doing this, and they're going to drive this forward. So yeah, I think that there is definitely some business.
Great. Thank you once again, Max, Annika, and Michael, as well as David, for the very fruitful discussion. Let's give them another round of applause. Thank you, and thank you for letting us know that it's important to stop that design now and worry later mentality by considering the concept of circularity in the design process so that we can minimize the ways we have to deal with later. And thank you once again. Please be seated.
Thanks, Michael.
I'll leave it here. Bye, Michael. Thank you. Please be seated off stage.